Let me see. I've got it set to my headphones where you should, okay, let me try this one. All right, can you guys hear everybody else? You guys talk.
Blah, 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 blah,
okay.
Blah, blah.
I'm registering sound from you now on OBS. Welcome to Crazy Land, where everything is backwards. Congratulations. You know, streaming live is always fun because...
I think you got hit by the same Windows update I did. I had to reset, that's what the delay was. I had no sound, nothing was pointing to any of the virtual audio cable. I think you got hit by the same one.
I probably did.
You know, there was one that hit a couple of weeks ago. It was, I have no idea why, but it shut down NetBIOS with Windows 10. Because assuming everybody's on TCP/IP all of a sudden, so now I have NetBIOS completely shut down, and it's the only way that I'm able to communicate with machining centers inside the factory. And now for 2 weeks I have to, I've actually had to go back to floppy drives. So
wow.
I'm really glad that I kept a box of 3.5 sitting around, because I wouldn't know what to do without them.
Oh my goodness.
3.25.
That's sneaker net.
It's pretty fun. So if you're curious, I'm going to put the picture up of the actual drinks. There's somebody I'm working with named Alexander, and so I'm going to give him a little quick shout out. He's actually a bartender in Canada, and he's been working with me. He helped me develop the Darwin drink, which was whiskey, spiced rum, a little splash of soda water with a twist, you know, with a little squeeze of orange and a twist of lemon if you like it. A twist of orange. If you like it a bit sweet, you add a little bit of the classic syrup in there if you like, or if you want it, you know, very stiff, you can drink it without that. It's an evolving drink. You know, Darwin, evolving. I'm not even sorry for that. So he helped me develop. So I'm going to put a picture up for those of you watching. I think I have that where it is. Here it is. So if you're watching at home or whatever, so I have the AC/DC drink. So the AC/DC drink is essentially, on the left side we have the AC, which is essential. Both of them are vodka. They're both vodka drinks. So 2 parts vodka. The one on the left is 1 part triple sec with a little bit of sweet and sour. We got like a little squeeze of lemon in there, and a splash of lemon lime soda. And on the right is vodka, 2 parts vodka, 1 part blue curacao with squeeze of lime, some lemon lime soda, and a little lime on the outside. So we have our AC/DC drink there. So I have to say thank you, Alexander, for putting that together on a pretty quick timeline. So we've got yellow and blue together make green. So if you were to pour it together in a big giant drink, you know, can you imagine if you actually put your circuits together like that, like an AC/DC, what kind of explosions would occur?
Well, that all depends on whether or not you have the proper transformers, or whether there's a full bridge rectifier involved. Sorry, I'm not going to try and electro boom anymore.
Diet
I had
Andy
to do it once.
all about making explosions of fire.
Yeah.
So today I actually have a less arduous, you know, intro for my poor memory. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. This particular intro is made by Gonna Go For It, also known as Peter, and Doc Hackenslash, also known as Tony. Tony did the music and Peter did the intro. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so that's the really cool intro by Peter and Tony and thank you so much for that. So that's really quite helpful for me. Didn't they do a great job? They did a fabulous job. And the first one for the Darwin show was actually kind of memory heavy, and unfortunately my poor laptop was working really hard, and Peter's like, I will send you a better one. And I'm like, thank you, Peter. So yeah, so the whole spirit of this particular series, and the thing that I really kind of want to impress upon people is you don't have to be a scientist or somebody freaking massive in regard to science or for that matter. If you just enjoy it and you want to learn, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're doing. So I don't have a background at all in electrical engineering whatsoever, but I do have a little bit of a crush on Tesla. You know, he's a little bit of my dead scientist crush going on there. I've been watching some things about him as far as the work that he's done and his personality and that sort of, and I've read a few things. So what I thought we could do is kind of start a bit with Sci. So Sci, you talk, you know, and the thing that I like is I kind of gave you each a little bit of an assignment of sorts to try to, like, I would really like it if you would talk about this, because Sci actually builds Tesla coils in his basement. So what, you know, so the topic that I gave you, Sci, what was it? And go.
Okay, well, the topic, as I recall, after wrestling with Windows, I have to let the mind clear, of Nikola Tesla's various inventions that are involved in a lot of the radio communications kind of stuff that we, and specifically I, do today. We have other guests. Great. Anyway, obviously I'm referring to his work with resonance and transference of electrical currents over great distances. And it didn't take him long to think about if we are conveying electricity wirelessly through the air, gee, maybe information could be conveyed that way as well. And Nikola Tesla did with the Tesla coil, so named obviously for its inventor, was essentially Zap. Yeah, its other name. It was essentially just a very large radio transmitter. And before the turn of the century, not this century, the last one, Tesla had quite a few patents for radio, not just wireless power transfer or anything of that sort. And then I think in, what was it, 1904, that all turned south. Anyway, his ideas on wireless powerless transfer would have worked. Now, that would involve a centralized large Tesla coil oscillating in its resonant frequency, and several smaller coils at various places to act as the receiving points to deliver electrical power to all of us happy users. For free transmission, it sounds great. Except that we'd all be living in a massive RF field, and you've all heard the controversy about having cell phones next to your head. It causes cancer. Well, I think about being in an RF field several orders of magnitude stronger than anything you could produce with a handheld device. So, anyway, there was no free energy. That's a lot of misstatements and distortions of Tesla's work have been made, and very little talk about what he was really trying to accomplish. And that was mainly it. We still credit Marconi and Edison with a lot of things that maybe should be credited to Tesla. For radio, for example, Marconi ended up with the patent. No one's exactly sure why the courts reversed the decision and said he could have that. There are suspicions, but no one knows exactly why. Money. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did slip out. He's yeah. Nikola Tesla did produce some amazing inventions, and not all in the area of electricity. Another thing people rarely mention is the bladeless turbine. What an amazing invention that is. Until you think about it, well, why it would be such a big deal. Think of something with that instead of using moving fluid such as air, bumping into veins and pushing them. You're using the boundary layer, or where friction occurs on a surface. So it's much less surface area, can be used in a much higher heat environment because there's less heat transfer. Anyway, but I digress. His initial work. Yes?
So I have a quick question about bladeless turbines. Are they truly bladeless, or are the blades interior? That's just my ignorance, because I actually forget.
Think of it as a series of discs, and it's exactly what they are, with no blades on them. They're discs. If you just think of, 5 or 10 discs with washers in between, spacing them out, and air entering at the center and moving in a circular pattern, and then exiting at the outer perimeter. This is called either the boundary layer turbine or a cohesion type turbine, where it's the friction and the cohesion of the air with the surface of the actual discs with no blades whatsoever that caused it to rotate. And it worked with surprising efficiency. Air exited the turbine at a vastly lower pressure than incoming, and much work was achieved. I'm not sure in what industry such a thing would be practical. Tesla actually envisioned it being used for. He had high hopes for geothermal energy as well.
What about windmills instead of windmills, or is that not viable?
Not so much. A bladeless turbine is generally designed for a high pressure, low volume, whereas windmill, it's almost the opposite. It's a high volume, low pressure kind of situation that moves them. But anyway, to actually answer my assignment and see what kind of grade I get, Tesla's worked with resonance and allowed for an almost amplifying effect of electricity. You give a tuned coil a little kick, and it essentially vibrates or oscillates after the initial impulse happens. This oscillation translates, in addition to its wireless power transfer, into the RF communications we use today. And actually, if not for a just seemingly endless succession of both bad luck and nefarious actors, Tesla would have gotten a lot more credit than he did. I don't know if I shouldn't go into that too much. That was someone else's assignment, was it not?
It was, I believe.
All right, I apologize.
It's quite all right. You can. What I like to do is kind of have a bit of an overlap, and so since a lot of the topics do overlap, it promotes good positive discussion. I feel like Tesla is very reminiscent of a lot of the scientists we have now that are going, why aren't we doing the things? It's like, why aren't we doing the things that are making lives better and stuff? So when you're talking about these turbines, I don't necessarily talk a lot about politics on this channel, but I can't help but think about that one particular politician that says we can't have wind farms because it slows down the wind, which would heat up the planet. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, no.
I'm sure everyone's gotten the email warning of the dangers of solar panels sucking the energy from the sun. Have you seen that?
Yes.
It's just like it's sucking the energy out. We can't do that, guys. Well, in all fairness, for that singular politician that said it would slow down the wind, yes, on like a micro level, it would slow down the wind, but not enough to cause planetary heat to increase.
We've got more wind. If it slows down a little, there's always more.
Right?
Yeah, and what are solar panels supposed to do? Are they supposed to be giant sponges that just suck up the sun? I mean, I don't get how that's supposed to work.
Well, apparently you put up a windmill and it just absorbs all motion in the atmosphere.
Not really on the same topic, but my question is, what is the science on windmills actually having an effect on birds populations? Because you hear people talk about, well, they're destroying the birds.
Oh, goodness.
You know, there is actually a large amount of publicity when it comes to this one, and it is. I feel like it's kind of a misleading topic. I don't know for sure. I haven't done enough research.
Well,
here in Colorado, we do have a large number of wind farms in the northeast part of the state. It is always very windy as the, wind comes off the Rocky Mountains and blah, 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 blah. I don't know all of the thermodynamics behind wind. I'm not going to pretend to be a meteorologist or anything of that sort, but there are a tremendous number of wind farms in northeastern Colorado. And I've never heard a single person in northeastern Colorado complain about dead birds on the lawn. So I can only presume it's kind of a farce.
They don't really spin that fast.
No, they move incredibly slow.
And if you've ever
thing I know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say if you've ever seen a bird clear your hood by half an inch intentionally. I suspect they're flying skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're talking about a turbine 300 feet in diameter, a yard in diameter, 100 yards in diameter, 300 feet.
Yeah. Well, you know
they're not moving fast. They generate a lot of torque. Indeed. So when there isn't wind, they have the flywheel effect, and they are able to maintain motion to a certain degree, rotational motion due to the flywheel type effect. But they're not moving at high rates. You're not talking about 10,000 RPM on a football field wide carbon fiber wind turbine. That's just not the way it works.
I suspect they can see it coming, and much like the deer population here in New Jersey, which is just insane, we have a road called the Garden State Parkway. Runs down the center of the state. Many, many years ago, deer were jumping out all over the place and just bumping into cars. Now they're not. Now they're standing on the side of the road, looking at cars. This is called artificial selection. We're improving the breed.
It happens.
Well, anyway.
For just a split second, I thought you were going to say deer were flying into windmills left and right.
Sorry, I got booted off. I keep losing call for some reason. No, but deer do like to fly in front of my Jeep all the time. Those little jerks.
Are you back on the Northern Peninsula?
No, we were up there last week, and we're not going to go back for a couple weeks. But yeah, we were up there last weekend.
Well,
nice. So
it does look like a fun place to visit. Sorry to pirate your show, Mel. That's not what I was intending. My apologies.
So what I gather from this is Nikola Tesla hated both birds and deer.
That's right.
If I again, I'm going to get in trouble because I know it wasn't my assignment, and both and I think Andy are going to be mad at me. My favorite.
Oh, you're going to try and take away from my homework, aren't you?
Okay, I'll just say one thing and tell me whether I should shut up or not. Well,
Shut up.
I'll say a name and a number. Edison, $50,000. Should I stop or go ahead?
You can actually go ahead because... Yeah, go ahead.
All right, as long as I'm not stepping on your toes, because Andy's stronger than me.
I think Buster's stronger than me.
Oh my!
Oh,
You didn't,
that one hits home.
you didn't see me lift the front end of a Volkswagen today. Anyway,
And
the
not a Beetle. That one was a full-blown VW van.
And it's epic.
indeed, that's the coolest vehicle ever. Again, not a Tesla invention. Is my favorite part of the story, which I'm glad I'm being permitted to mention, is after Nikola Tesla got here to this country, he's working for Edison, and Edison told him that he would give him he would pay $50,000 for an improved design for his what he called dynamos. Dynamos are what we call generators now, the DC generator. So Tesla worked his genius head off and then came up with a solution and asked for the money. And Edison responded to him, Tesla, you don't understand our American humor. Not long after that, Tesla quit. So that's...
You know, that... Were you trying to segue, or...
That's it. I figured that's the end of me. That would be a nice, I'm done. But, yeah, yes, Edison did a lot of stuff, made a lot of stuff, but was very good at getting his way.
Does anybody know the remote control boat story with Tesla?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that one.
Of course. How in the... Okay, so...
Go for it, Andy. Go
Mel,
for it.
I'm sorry. I've been very eager to jump on this.
Go
because
for it. Go for it.
Ever
That's why
since
we're
we
here.
first started talking about this show, I've been very excited to share my knowledge. It's not a full body of knowledge by any means, but it is my body of knowledge, and I've always enjoyed sharing that. As we talked about earlier, actually, I've been working on getting getting a job with the University of Colorado.
Yes.
Both the Boulder campus and the South campus outside. Yeah, anywho. I love education. I absolutely love it. And there are times where I screw things up and I provide false information. It makes me feel terrible because it's not the standard that I expect from educators. But anywho, I love science, and I love everything that both Edison and Westinghouse and Tesla and Ford, believe it or not, they're all tied together. I love everything that they did because they did a tremendous amount to create a new scientific frontier in ideology, and not in ideology the way that you would normally think about it, but in how do we look at the future and how do we produce amazing. Sometimes you get blinded by this, that, and the other thing, and you go, the future is this weird guy on the side of the street spouting nonsense about the end of the world. Well, it happens. Ignore him. Move on with your life. But
why don't you share the really fun remote control Tesla boat story?
Okay, so one of, and I say this very, very specifically, one of the amazing inventions that Nikola Tesla actually came up with happened to be the ability to utilize radio frequencies to send signals from an object to an object. It seems very simple this day and age because, of course, we all have, for the vast majority, everyone grew up with a remote control for their TV. And as time progressed, you got remote controls for more and more items that happen to be around your house, and it becomes commonplace, so you generally don't think about them. But these are items that took significant scientific strides forward, where a lot of information was unknown at the time. A lot of things were actually accidental. And it doesn't matter if it's accidental or intentional when it comes to a lot of inventions. You get to a certain point in time, or not even, I shouldn't say a certain point in time, that's a horrible way of wording it. You get to, I've been tinkering with this thing. Holy crap, it does this. And part of the remote control actually, it is part of that, because there was obviously a backstory to all of the different ways that Tesla was tinkering with alternating current, with how he was tinkering with all sorts of things at the time, and being able to transmit a signal wirelessly from one position to the next had Edison and Tesla continued to work hand in hand as opposed to inventor businessman, Edison obviously being the businessman, there's a very good chance that wireless electronic charging of batteries, because this is one place where I have to diverge to a great extent. Edison, as a self-taught chemist, was absolutely captivated with battery technology. How can we do this? How can we generate direct current outside of actual generation stations? He actually produced a very prominent battery that is still in use today, the nickel-iron battery. And had the two have been able to work out their differences from inventor and businessman, there's a very good chance that rechargeable electronics and the electronic vehicle, for that matter, as it was very happening in the 1890s to have an electric vehicle, these things would have taken place much sooner than all of a sudden now. So certain things took place. Unfortunately, there was a displacement in how it is that we're going to work with each other, and that sucks, but whatever, we deal with it. It happens. But Tesla's work with alternating current, Edison's work with direct current and battery technology, it led to a direct argument individually. They weren't able to work it out. They weren't able to progress past that point and move on with their work. And why in the world do we have drinks during a show like this? Because I completely lost my point.
Okay, so I think I understand.
This should not be a show that has alcohol incorporated, because I've completely lost my point. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, that
anymore.
too. And Andy, did you work like 20 hours today?
So far, our clock resets on Wednesday, and I've worked 23.2 hours since Wednesday through today.
Okay, I think the point you were trying to make is that because a lot of the woo around the amazing technology that Tesla brought forward, people were like, "Oh, that's magic," and they immediately dismissed it. So his boat story, he had a boat that it was out in the demonstration. He was able to maneuver this boat with a remote control.
God, that's right. I was talking about his RC boat.
Oh, crap. My mind froze me. I was trying to say boat. Andy, boat.
We're moving back. It's okay. It's okay. But, what I find inherently interesting, especially about chats like this, is that every single person feels, has their own personal perspective of a particular scientist or a concept or something like that, which makes it very endearing and touchable and real. So you're talking about, if only people didn't call it magic, we would be so much further now. I'm with you, Andy. So that's exactly what happened. So when he developed a remote control boat, and he's piddling it around the pond. And be like, it's magic. We can't possibly pursue this, you know. And you're like, no, it's science, and it's okay. But
they're
far ahead.
You are absolutely correct, and there are multiple times where these things do just arise in your daily. I'm not going to say that I'm anywhere near the inventive level of a lot of people in the history of creating stuff. But there are a lot of times where you sit down, you know, being an engineer at least, and you're like, okay, I can rearrange this. Like, I can physically move this pallet rack, and it's going to cut 5 minutes off of somebody's work. And then you combine that engineering knowledge that Tesla obviously had, and his knowledge of science, chemistry, physics, electrical engineering. The man was incredibly intelligent, and he could see those things where most people would go, why do you want to scoot that over 2 feet? That's stupid. I'm not going to do that. But in all actuality, you scoot that thing over 2 feet, and suddenly you're able to process 100 times more work, no matter what that work is. Some people have an eye for that, and yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that.
See, and that's okay. But that's the thing. That's the thing about science, technology, and progress, is being able to find more efficient ways to do a particular thing. That's also innovation. And so that's what makes Tesla kind of endearing and a bit of a hero amongst scientists and engineers, in that he was like, look, I think it was he had a quote where he's like, it's not that I'm upset that they're stealing my ideas, it's that they can't come up with any of their own. So I think that's probably one of my favorite things, because he, in a way, is like, you know, he's charging people to think critically. He's like, come on, man, you guys got fantastic brains. I mean, why are you know, I don't care that you use my ideas and build on that. That's kind of what we're here for. But at the same time, think a little bit. You know?
Yeah, you know,
I do
part
have
of the homework that you gave me, Mel, was, you know, looking at potential ways that the future that we live in now might have been made different due to certain aspects. And I love those sort of questions, because it really gives you an ability to think about something that never has an end.
I do have a quick question for Andy, if that's okay.
Sure,
Yeah,
go for
absolutely.
it. Go for it.
When it comes to Tesla and Edison, I don't remember where I read it, so take it for that. But I heard that Tesla was more of an ideas guy, and Edison was more of a, okay, how does this make money? And that was one of their big disputes.
That's a polite way of putting it.
That is I will agree with Cy, that is not only a very polite way of putting it, but it's probably it's a very easy way of sitting down and saying Tesla was a visionary. Edison was a businessman. And one of the easiest ways of sitting down and looking at the difference between a visionary and a businessman when it comes to history. Edison, I will give him credit absolutely for inventing the couple of things that he himself invented. The greatest invention from my standpoint that Edison ever created was industrializing the future. He found a way of selling ideas to the future, in selling ideas to investors that made the future seem feasible. On the other hand, Tesla was the visionary who actually sat down and said, this will be the future. And whether he built it himself, whether he built it out of Westinghouse money, whether he built it out of Edison money, Tesla had his course and his plan of action, and he followed it through. It didn't matter whether he was digging ditches for money. It didn't matter if he was going from New York City to Colorado Springs. He didn't care. He was going to make the future happen, whether anybody wanted to know that it was happening or not. Edison and other individuals of similar caliber, which Westinghouse is not actually similar caliber to Edison. He was a different type of philanthropist, but those individuals are focused on what it is that the dollar is going to get us. And Edison did not care. Tesla did not care what that dollar was going to get him. If he took $1 for a sack lunch that most of us took to school and went on a sack lunch, field trip with, he would have taken that dollar probably this day and age and gone, I can do this instead. And he probably would have ditched class. He probably would have been a bad student. He probably would have failed a lot of classes, but it's fine because he had a different vision, he had a different outlook, and he wound up being successful all the same upon that.
He would have, the one thing he lacked was any amount of deviousness. It's sad to say, but
well, you have to be deviant to be a successful businessman.
Indeed, he lacked.
Yeah, you can't be kind and be a businessman. It doesn't work. It's not an insult to people who work in business. It's not an insult to people that work in science and also have a mind for business. When you're just an inventor and a creator, and you have no mind for how can I profit off of this, that's how the Teslas of the world are created. That's where they come from.
Okay.
I don't care if this makes money. It's important.
Okay,
and
so I
eventually
have a question
someone's going to do it.
I have a question for the panel. Would you say that Tesla is like the real life version of the literary C.S. Lewis type of technology?
Wow.
The time machine, all of these aspects to where we have that future
I would say
world.
Tesla is the if you want to equate it to 21st century or in even 20th century, because he still is so far ahead of our times now. I would say that he is Iron Man.
He is Tony Stark. That is fair. I have to agree.
Well, but Tony Stark was a good businessman too.
Oh yeah.
Well,
maybe he's more like Bruce Banner.
Well, I don't know. Tony wasn't really all in on the business. He's like, I'm going to do this because I want to, and then he shifted gears. Pepper Potts is the one that's in charge of his company.
I can't see where the Bruce Bannerism does come from, though. Being a Serbian American, migrating to America right before World War I, and then having World War I break out because a Serbian nationalist decides to go and do something like, kill Archduke Ferdinand and start a global war. Suddenly, being a Serbian in a foreign country might make you look a little auspicious.
Well,
that's probably not something that any of us think about this day and age, because why would we?
Somebody mentioned that Tesla is like Tony Stark, except without money. Can you imagine if Tesla had money and vibranium?
Well,
he did have money, didn't he?
He almost did. Aside from Westinghouse and Edison, he was backed by J.P. Morgan for a while.
He was backed by J.P. Morgan, and
he started the Global Communications Network project, and then
this is part of my homework that I really wanted to get to. I'm sorry, now I got to jump into this one.
Go for it. It's quite all right.
Okay, I'm sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
So, potential ways that the future might have been different from what the current events are now. I am so glad that you offered me this one, Mel. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful construct to think about. Because of course it's all non-existent, and there's no way to tell.
It's all imagination.
So it makes it this beautiful construct of my own imagination, and I love it. So, as SciStrike was just saying, with all with these going back and lending money from J.P. Morgan to work on communications and wireless communication, and again, how SciStrike had brought up even earlier in the show, the very first actual radio communications, these things are taking place. And the question you asked me initially, running a remote-controlled boat around a lake in New York City. Imagine for a second. I'm gonna place everyone in kind of this little artificial philanthropic world of what could have been. Imagine Edison and Tesla sitting down and working together. Imagine Edison not hating the idea of alternating current because he wasn't going to be this pig-headed idiot that just wanted his stuff to make it. But I run this Edison Machine Works company now, and all ideas are open, and all inventions will be patented or utilized, and we will make a new future out of this. And you have Tesla and Edison working hand in hand. So you have alternating current motors, and you have direct current power generation in the form of batteries. And this is always a weird one to think about, but Edison did probably more for the development of batteries in the early age, during the Industrial Revolution, than a lot of other proprietors of technology did. We have the nickel-iron battery thanks to Edison, and it is an amazing piece of construction, and it utilizes... Getting a little ahead of myself. Anywho, so you have these individuals who, one is sitting down and going, I can do all of this stuff with alternating current, and you have another one going, but I can do all of this stuff as well with direct current. Okay. Instead of sitting down and arguing which one is better, how to patent this one, how to do this, how to do that, if Edison would have been willing to not be the narcissistic fool that he was, work with his scientific development team, there's a very good chance that at this day and age, instead of Westinghouse putting in AC power plants, you could have had Edison and General Electric putting in AC power plants across the country, power transmission lines that both gave electricity to households, and since you asked me to do some homework on this one, Mel, I've been thinking about it a lot.
I appreciate
wireless
that, Andy.
power
Thank
transmission through Tesla's inventions to Edison's chemistry-oriented brain and battery technology. So you're driving down a Tesla/Edison roadway built by General Electric, and it's 1905. The internal combustion engine is a waste of time. Nobody cares about it anymore because you can drive down the road and recharge your Edison battery for free off of Tesla's knowledge with wireless transfer of energy. World War I comes around, and yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to stop that one. It was going to happen. Part of the reason I personally think that Tesla wound up getting a hard stick in America was because, the Serbian nationalists started World War I by assassinating Archduke Ferdinand. Tesla was a Serbian-American scientist. The there was probably some hardship there. But you get on to, well, screw it. I'm going to say it. Make Germany great again. Well, look at all of those German scientists that, you know, we took a lot of them. The Soviets took a lot of them. A lot of them were lost. It was a bad conflict, and things shouldn't have gone that way. Had America been sitting down with wireless transfer of energy, driving around in cars with battery technology, capable of supporting what it was that we were doing, there's a very good chance that the technological outcome of our entire civilization as humans would have been so wildly different. There is actually a technological advancement point where the possibility of Cold Wars don't exist, where world wars no longer exist. I, for one, believe had Tesla and Edison actually worked together and produced this technology instead of getting into the current war that Edison had with Westinghouse, the electric car probably would have actually taken the market back in the... Because you got to remember, the electric car was incredibly popular in the 1890s. But Andy, the battery technology wasn't there.
Were there also steam-powered cars in the beginning, too?
I thought
there was a lot of steam-powered cars. Your primary conveyor, your primary proponents when it came to the origination of who's going to battle who for power, you were looking at electric cars and internal combustion cars. And funny thing that a lot of people probably don't realize is that Edison happened to be a board of director at General Electric.
Huh.
He was on the board. If he had worked more closely with Tesla in the early days, and they had developed both Edison battery technology, which I believe they could have, and alternating current technology. The particular piece that I'm referring to happens to be the fact that brushless DC motors don't run on DC current. They are alternating current motors.
Right.
So, you know, even DC motors, they're actually AC motors. It took a long time to develop that technology and make it efficient. If they would have continued on the road of we're going to work together and we're going to produce something amazing, I think that we would easily be 50 years ahead of our time. And if the internal combustion engine would not have won over electric motor vehicles, that's when things start getting political, and I don't want to go too much further, but you can imagine oil wars not existing. That sounds pretty awesome to me.
I don't know, because I heard you say there would be no Cold War, which means there would be no Rocky IV, and that's arguably the greatest movie in American history.
Okay, there would be some sacrifices in Hollywood that would have to be made.
Like 90% of the great movies of the 1980s would not exist.
Oh my goodness! All right.
But at the same rate, if can you imagine a viable electric vehicle driving down the road at 80 miles an hour in 1920, pre-World War II? You have AC transmission lines running down the road. You have DC batteries that are capable of wireless transfer at the time because people got together and worked together instead of... And to put it in perspective, the current war lasted multiple years. So that's years lacking development. That's years lacking producing something new. And Thomas Edison even sat down and somehow was able to rebuild some of Nikola Tesla's original designs for his dynamo. And he built the first electric chair. Now, that's to think about how far in the wrong direction this went, both Edison and Westinghouse were very public about their opposition to capital punishment. So utilizing their technology in order to do something of that nature, wildly unacceptable. Well, so that's how far Edison went to try and sabotage Westinghouse and thus Tesla, because obviously Tesla had worked for Edison, told him you're only going to be able to send power long distances by utilizing alternating current.
Well, I mean, you know, and
the first person was electrocuted to death in one of the most horrible fashions imaginable. In fact, one of the actual newspaper article, publicists that was there to witness it is still quoted to this day saying, "You could have done it better with an axe."
Indeed.
That's a horrible thing to do, to try and shove a stick up your nemesis tuchus. If you work together instead of fighting each other, there's a very good chance you can do amazing things that will change the world.
Agreed. But Edison was, you know how everyone says, I don't want to be that guy? Edison was that guy.
He was that guy. Well,
it's
so
not
was Westinghouse.
Well, Si, I'm going to be that guy, too, because I'm sending these thunderstorms your way in 2 hours.
Oh, all right. That works. I'll move the back out to the porch. We'll be fine. But, see, because with the electric chair thing, it wasn't just that technology was used to create the electric chair. See, that's bad enough. But to use it to discredit a technology that he knew was more efficient.
Oh yeah, he knew absolutely, without question, he was aware.
He figured, okay, how can we end this? How can we end this threat to my supremacy in this particular arena?
Yeah, he didn't like the fact that he was being threatened on a personal level. Because when it comes down to when you invent something, there might be 100 ways of doing what you did.
Mm-hmm.
But you have that ability as an inventor, and Mel, I think it'd be really cool if you also did a show on Edison, because he does come across as a dick, but he also did a lot of really cool stuff.
I was going to say, he's
should
getting a pretty
totally
bad
do
rap.
that. So
When it comes to Edison versus Tesla, Tesla's a badass and Edison's a dick, but Edison actually did do a lot of amazing things, and he does have his own right in history as being a somewhat decent inventor and capitalist and blah, blah, blah. But
okay, so somebody asked him... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, according to you, Edison is the reason we got Rocky IV, so...
Yeah.
I mean...
Well...
Priorities and all, so... Somebody asked in the chat, they were like, did Edison electrocute an elephant?
Yes.
So I checked on Snopes.
Yes, Thomas Edison electrocuted multiple animals utilizing alternating current in a ploy. The disgust of what he did to try and make DC power look more viable is horrific, because when it comes to electricity, it doesn't matter whether it's alternating or direct. It is easier to come up with the frequencies necessary in alternating current, and thus the amplitude to, unfortunately stop a heart.
Right.
But DC does the exact same thing.
Uh-oh. Does Mel have a debunking in store for us?
Well, I was going to say that in regards to Peter gonna go for it, asked about whether or not Edison had electrocuted an elephant, and from what I found, yes, that is true. I
was worried there.
He did actually electrocute an elephant.
That's part of the reason why I say, had Edison have not had the bias that he had and simply gone, wow, this Serbian-American physicist that is incredibly intelligent and just wants to, he's got a great vision. If he had worked with him.
Yeah, just how about
Oh
both?
my!
Just said the words.
Can you imagine?
Here's the headline. Here's the headline for the elephant.
I probably would have been born on Mars if they would have worked together.
Okay, so this comes from edison.rutgers.edu. As American society has become more sensitive to the suffering of animals, the execution of Topsy, that was the name of the elephant, has also been portrayed in the popular media as an example of animal cruelty. Edison has therefore been accused of torturing Topsy in order to satisfy his ego and further his commercial interest. Wired magazine's online edition, for instance, ran a story on Topsy with the headline, Edison fries an elephant to prove his point. The point ostensibly was that Westinghouse AC electrical system was much more dangerous to consumers than Edison's DC system. So he was trying to prove that AC alternating current was more dangerous than DC current by frying an elephant.
Aside from the fact that in order to transmit a viable voltage level of DC current, anybody at a power generation station that was under Edison's operation would not have the ability to live through a rainstorm.
Unless they stationed an elephant.
Not to mention the fact that you would have to have tens of thousands of pounds of copper wire in the first inch
It's
of
just,
transmission line.
it's
You know what can carry
amazing.
tens of thousands of pounds of copper wire? Elephants.
There you go.
Someone
It's-
Can't argue that.
It's funny how scaremongering has been used in order to push a particular perspective, not only in pseudoscience, but also in the actual sciences in order to make some kind of money. So I think that's kind of where we see the division between Tesla versus Edison. I don't see a lot of that scaremongering amongst Tesla like I have in Edison.
Well,
you know what I mean?
No,
Tesla,
but there's been a
Tesla
lot
wasn't
of
doing
rumors
that. Edison was terrified. I think he realized from early on when he actually employed Nikolai Tesla. I think he saw early on, if I continue down this road, I'm going to lose money. Here's this young Eastern European inventor who. Why should I, as an American philanthropist, be intimidated by this? But I am.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say no. That's not the way. Direct current. That's going to be that's how we're going to light Chicago. That's how we're going to light up New York. And he's again. I think this is actually more duly suited for making a show about Edison as opposed to Tesla, because it gets into other aspects of what Edison did as a businessman and what have you.
Yes.
But there were certain things that take place, and okay, if you have to sit down and you have to accept the fact that your business model isn't working, it is not viable.
Right.
What options are you left with? You can attack your proponent, and that's generally what all people do.
True.
Especially when it comes to business. At least when it comes to business. I'm not going to say in the world of science. I think in the world of science we have better heads on our shoulders.
I will respectfully disagree to an extent because
understandable.
Because with science, people are still subjected to their own biases. And so having been a person that's been a woman in science and been subjected to biases of the male gender and even of the female gender, where I've been told science is hard and you're a girl, you should be a teacher. They're still what we call the gatekeepers that kind of keep us from getting involved in things. And we do have research that suggests that women scientists are less published than male scientists, even when the reviewers are female. So we still have this weird stuff going on, but it's there. But the thing is that science does self-correct over time. Sometimes it takes a long time. So
indeed, you just brought something to my thought process that I think you and I would have a lot of fun doing.
Alcohol induced or sober?
No, actually, this would absolutely.
I am drinking a DC at the moment, and it's got Princess Leia on it, so I win the internet for the evening.
This would absolutely require no alcohol consumption whatsoever.
All right, I'm out. Bye, all.
Sorry, SciStrike. You're going to have to put up with it for 5 seconds.
Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
What do you think about sitting down and doing a blind study with yourself and myself as far as how it is that people interact with if this is presented by situations?
That would be pretty interesting.
You're in a completely different part of the country as I am. We could run identical scenarios on people that are thousands of miles apart. There would be no age bias, gender bias, nothing.
It would
be completely blind.
It wouldn't be hard to do. There are things to our disposal like Survey Monkey and that sort of thing. It would be hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, but haven't you ever been interested in being one of the surveyors so that you okay, hey, we actually got like a 70-30 on the opposite spectrum, but we're going to go ahead and fudge that and go 20-80.
Oh my goodness, rounding up when you're not supposed to.
Can you imagine being I've never actually thought about doing it independently.
Because I have a connection with Dr. Amanda Glaze. She does evolution education. She might be able to move us towards certain tools and that sort of thing, and that would kind of give us a jump start on that idea. What would be really interesting, Andy, is if you presented yourself as a woman giving these particular interviews, and I presented myself as a male.
Have a voice for it.
No, you don't have to. I could lend you the voice. You could have the avatar of me, but you would be the person who would be receiving all of the information. I would have an avatar of you being male named Andy, and you would generate the questions with your voice and see what these particular responses. That would be interesting. It would not only be educational for us on a statistical level, but also a personal.
This sounds very interesting, actually.
Can I make a request from Andy?
That's a really cool idea, actually.
If Andy does any voicing, can he do it in the voice of Hal? Because he's got a very Hal voice as it is.
I'm sorry, Stephen. If you want anything to change, you're going to have to look at the computers in the future. And oh my God, that hurts my own throat. Man, my brain. That hurt my whole head.
I always thought Cy and Andy had fantastic, talking voices. They have very nice talking voices.
Yeah, so when they talk to the ISS, people will actually listen to them.
Maybe when Cy talks to him. I'm nowhere close when it comes to the radio knowledge. I'm still learning. I'm pulling my bootstraps up as we speak.
Oh, goodness. So kind of rounding out the Tesla talk, let's talk a bit about his personality and the idiosyncrasy. Words are hard. I'm on drink 3.
Words.
They are.
All right.
Idiosyncrasies, is that the word? Or idiosyncrasies, that's not a word.
Idiosyncrasies, you were right.
I was right the first time. I should go with instinct, because usually that's correct when I say words. So, idiosyncrasies. So Tesla, He was a very lonely individual, my understanding is, in that he did not like touching individuals, particularly their hair, and he developed a romantic love for a pigeon.
Yeah, and that is not just a pigeon in his last years. This is how sad it is. With all of the abilities and experimentation he did, and interesting inventions and useful items, how he ended his life was sort of sad. Not sort of sad. It was sad. He had a room in New York, and he spent his final years feeding, and he said communicating with pigeons. So things did not go well, and there's suspicion that all of that early trauma in his life had something to do with that. I think what it was in, he lost his mother when he was 7 or something of that sort.
Oh wow!
I'm gonna have to check. I'm not 100% sure it was his mother, but I believe that's the case. Let me check that real quick. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Well, I'll never complain about being upset again. If we have time, there's an elephant in the room I want to talk about when it comes to Tesla, even though Mel didn't assign me anything.
It's quite all right,
okay.
Steve. Go for it.
That would be how the flat earthers have hijacked him
Oh wow!
for their argument.
Go for it. What's going on with the
Okay.
flat earthers and Tesla?
Well, I don't know if you know, but since they deny gravity and everything like that, they need something else to make it sound palatable to morons. So they jumped on the electric universe thing, which was total BS. And, Tesla made electricity, so therefore flat Earth. And apparently he said some things, Tesla, and they misquote him, quote mind him, of course, and sit there and said he said the Earth was flat. And even if he did, I don't see how that proves anything. Is anyone aware of this, or is this just me from listening to all these flatheads?
I have never heard of Tesla saying the Earth is flat.
He never did.
I've
did.
The claim is made. He's right. The claim is made frequently, and a lot of others.
And you only see it in flat Earth circles that he said.
It's like, what the heck?
Mm.
Oh, I have flat earthers don't often approach me so much because I usually just send them a link to the American Psychology Association on how to pick an appropriate psychologist to help them with their particular individual needs. So, I mean, and that's not an insult because I have been to therapy in the past to help me deal with a time where I was being stalked and stuff, and that's pretty heavy. So learning how to cope with that and understanding the people who do such things is quite valuable. Therapists can be teachers as well. So I just, that is my default now when dealing with a flat earth person. And I have a script. I say, hi, I see you think the earth is flat. Here's a link to help you find an appropriate psychologist to meet your individual needs. Have a great day. That is what I do every time on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. It doesn't matter. That is across the board. I do not engage with flat earthers because they're not there to learn. They're there to bark at me like a dog, where they expect me to sit there and go, okay, Lassie, Timmy's in the well. Okay, let's go. They
fall for bumper sticker and red hat slogans at the drop of a hat, so they just assume we all do.
You guys would probably appreciate the article that I wrote in regards to science, communication, language, and perception. If you say fancy words, okay, so when you're delivering content, the audience has to respect the fact that you're an authority, so you have to convince them that you're an authority. People who are of lower intelligence accept the profound quotes like, today is the only day you have, go out and make it the best one, that kind of crap. People who are lower intelligence will accept these profound Deepak Chopra type of quotes. There's a study associated with that, and I link it in my article. So so you have to know who your audience is. You have to establish that you're an authority in what you're talking about. you have to draw them in a little bit with that the world is ever changing and we are all this on this thing and here's some pretty words. And also, people tend to listen to video and audio more than they do reading. So that's another thing why in my science communication endeavors, I have more video, I have more audio, I have less articles because it's less intimidating for people.
Mel, I've learned that too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but as I've gotten bigger on YouTube, I notice when I do videos, I used to make very wordy videos, and I still show things with lots of diagrams and words, but you're absolutely right. People don't like to read. I've noticed that too. Sorry.
I mean, and there's, and to a degree, reading is important, but not everybody learns as well with reading as they do with interaction. I'm one of those people. I could, I've gone to college a lot, and I've put in my time, and I've sat at home, read a book, rewritten my notes 1,000 times, but I learned so much better from a person sitting with me and saying, this is how we do the things. A, B, C, and D. This is where you got it wrong. This is where you need to work on it. That is by far more helpful to me than me sitting down and reading a textbook. I'm not saying that textbooks aren't useful. I'm saying that coupled with appropriate instruction is inherently valuable to me as a learner. So,
not only that, Mel, but I think we've reached a point in time that I think we should stop considering people who use audiobooks as the lazy form. There's a lot of people that I know that won't sit down and read a book, but they'll listen to an audiobook, and they're getting the information.
I agree. And to be quite honest, I have a very, very hectic schedule. And so the time that I get to myself, because to me, my science communication endeavors are important. So I spend a lot of time working on this, like this show, developing things, trying to get content out. That takes a lot of my time. I'm currently listening to The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan. I've read that book probably 3/4 of the way through, but I always find that I have to stop and do something. So I don't get to spend the time where I get to sit, and I do enjoy sitting and reading a book. But I have to say, having Carrie Elways read Carl Sagan to me is entirely fantastic and wonderful. The only thing that's like making this experience like less is if he were to do it in video and say, "Would you like me to read Carl Sagan to you?" As you wish. I would just scream all over the place, like, yes! Freaking Carrie Elways is reading Carl Sagan to me. This is the best day ever! So for me, it's a holistic experience of not only do I get to enjoy Carl Sagan, but Carrie Elways is doing it. How is this a problem? I think it's wonderful. So
I don't think that's a problem. But no, I know people learn in different ways, and some people are never going to pick up a book on physics or something along those lines, but maybe they can listen to an audiobook on it and get just as much information.
That's how I learned about space-time, believe it or not. So, my show I have on Saturdays, it's all viewer generated as far as the topic, and so every one particular week, relativity won. Space-time has always eluded me as far as what it is, the consistency. How do I wrap my brain around space? I understood the energy equation, but I had listened to Professor Brian Cox, E=mc², and Why We Should Care, and he gets into the math of that. I'm not particularly heavy in regards to loving math, but the way he explains it is so eloquent and precise and direct. I'm like, I get that. So when it came to my relativity show, it always was elusive to me about space-time. But I took that, I studied everything I could about space-time, I found all the experiments I needed, and I'm like, now I get it. So that's kind of also another reason why I love doing what I do here with my science communication, is because I get to learn things too. But that book, if Professor Brian Cox had been my physics teacher, I would have understood so much more, especially in that first semester. How many forces on a pulley? I really don't care. So, I really don't care. The second semester, I did exponentially better. They're like 2 electrons moving in a field. I'm like, I got this. You know, it's like the freaking how many forces on a pulley. I don't care. A ball is rolling down a hill. I don't know. Let's talk about the grass, photosynthesis. I know all about that. So it's like
the balls rolling down the hill are very important. Though. Very important.
How much
Somebody's at the
friction?
bottom of the hill.
I just
This is more of an no. This is more. This is not an assertion. This is more of an observation. The whole people learn in different ways and all that sort of thing is very popular these days, and it is correct. People, I don't say anything wrong with that as an assertion, but do you think it's possible? I mean, look back at the great inventors and all that. They all learned in one way, whether they were interested or not. Read this, or you fail. And it was very straightforward. It's you read this, or obviously you fail. And the another example, when you're trying to study, when you're really getting something into your head, everyone tells you, and it's true, make notes. Even if you never read your notes, the act of making the notes makes it a physical action that your brain retains as well, in addition to another area of your brain where it was received visually. Yeah, I'm wondering if we're saying, well, people learn in different ways. Yes, but, and again, this is not an assertion, this is observation and question. Are these different ways you may receive the same information and understand it, but you may not have it at your command in the same way as if you had done it in the traditional, teacher standing with a ruler to smack you with a ruler if you don't read the damn thing? Is there any possibility of that? And
first of all,
I have to agree. Having been a teacher, and one thing that I always did, I always had my students write down the notes that I had on my PowerPoints. And to be fair, the time that their textbooks that they had when I was teaching were 7 years old. And so there was a lot of outdated information in their biology textbooks. So what I had to do is I would put the correct information on the screen. I was like, this is the correct information, what we have now according to science, but this is what you're going to be tested on because they haven't updated your textbooks or the tests. So the world isn't this old, it's actually this old according to our new information. This is why understanding how science can change is important. But I would have my students write it out because there is evidence to show that if you're writing out information, you're not only seeing it on a screen, you're hearing it as I'm talking about it, you're writing out the words, you're incorporating your muscles in regard to that, you're utilizing more senses, which touch, sight, hearing, which allows you to retain it longer.
You have to make sure they're actually writing the notes and not drawing Batman versus the Hulk.
Right.
What's wrong with drawing Batman and the Hulk?
Well, there's nothing wrong with them just saying they're taking notes. But I've learned, too, that once you learn something, it becomes easier to learn it in more abstract ways or ways you're not used to. Does that make any sense at all? Once you understand something.
Yes.
I mean, Stephen, not only does that make sense, but I think you're onto a key point where the audio-visual end of learning and the physical end of learning kind of, they start occupying the same space. So when you learn about the fact that triangles are ridiculously strong structures. You might hear that at one point in time. You might even be shown an example at one point in time, but chances are it slips from memory. I know it did for me, and I'm sure it does for a lot of people. But then, at some random interval of life, you're sitting down and you're looking at something, and you're like, why in the world is that 60 degrees? Oh, crap. I just remembered something about trigonometry. Why is this 60-degree angle so important?
I hated trig. I have to be honest.
You don't even realize it, but you learned it at some point in time, and I love trigonometry. I absolutely love trig.
I wish you had been around so you could have done my homework, Andy.
I do love trig.
I hated trig. I was great at calc. I made an A in calculus, but trig, I'm like, guys, this sucks.
I love both subject matters because, from my perspective at least, and go ahead and call me out if I'm wrong, because this is totally this is how I view it. So I'm sure it's not that way for everybody, but when I sit down and I see what that math is, I see a geometric reference. And as soon as it's a geometric reference, that gives me something in the real world that I can go back to and I can look at.
Right.
And
I just say something really
that
quick?
part of it, I don't necessarily love the back and forth with algebra. I actually hate algebra.
Algebra's great too.
But yeah. So
Can I just say
sorry.
something really quick? If I fail again because these thunderstorms are getting pretty bad, I just want to say good night in advance.
Okay, very, very cool.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hopefully we won't lose you, but if so, good night.
Good night.
I was just going to say to SciStrike that when it comes to what I was talking about, if I have a doctor, I want them to be able to read and take notes. But if I have someone that's just wanting to learn about a subject, they're not going to be deeply into that subject, but they want a better grasp of it. I don't see any problem with them just listening to an audio.
Oh, yes, I agree. I agree with you. For curiosity and for one's own just general edification and things of that sort. I was thinking more in terms of the wider, education of youth, higher education, things of that sort. Okay, my mind's drawing a blank here. Where's the quote from? I think things have become entirely too convenient already.
I don't know that quote,
that's from.
Yes.
Star Trek. Picard's
Was
father.
it really?
Picard's father. Things have become entirely too convenient already. Yes. That's if it's, and again, like I said, this is not an assertion. It's a curiosity, question, and a concern.
Yes.
If we cater to how everyone learns better, or is it how they prefer to learn, or is it what they prefer to do? Not how they prefer to learn, but what they prefer to do, which is watch a video.
Okay, so I will say my first master's, my research project associated with that was linking content mastery to interest. So, believe it or not a lot of people have done that, and it should be blatantly obvious that if you're interested in something, you're going to learn more about it. Yeah. So, I developed a way to quantify that, to be able to show through personal surveys coupled with previous performance on science tests, in addition to a standardized type of test. People want to be interested in what they're learning about. And so if you can't interest your audience, they're not going to learn. So it really doesn't matter what it is. And so I had, for my genetics class, what I went about was the 4 different Lubinsky personality types. You have your artists, you have your problem solvers, you have your hands-on people, and you have your talkers. So I allowed everybody to work in groups. So that handled the talkers. I had real world problem solving type of scenarios involving geneticists. You have a couple that's come in. This is the particular, and so I develop real world scenario for my active problem solvers, my hands-on people. And then I had like the artistic, imaginative type of individuals. Like, so you're at Hogwarts, you're going to make dragons. You have dragons. Fire breath is dominant. Acid breath is recessive. You're going to not only come up with baby dragons, but you're going to write a story about it. So that way I was able to teach Mendelian genetics, allowing people to be creative while talking to one another. And if they didn't want the creative assignment, they got the real world one. So, and I found that people who were interested in the lessons, regardless of previous accomplishments in regards to science tests, I had a 30% increase. 30% increase in my students who, whether they were interested, if they were interested in the content, their grade increased by 30%. The students who were like my super nerds that were like really like, really A students, if they weren't interested, there was actually a drop in their grade. So even if they knew the content, so it's just, I managed to find a way to quantify that. So you have to have people interested in what you're talking about. So that requires you to know your audience, know who you're talking to, try to find out what their knowledge base is. And even if it, so that's why a lot of my streams like this one is kind of based on high schoolish level. I can do more complicated streams, which I intend to do later on, but I'm focusing primarily on the individuals who are like, I can't science. And I'm like, yes, you can. Let me show you how. So that's my high school people.
Mel, can I, real quick, would you be interested in, I shouldn't say would you be interested in, because I'm the one that's interested in. Would you like to share that work with? I can understand why you might not want to share it, publicly with
I used
anybody,
to have it on my website. I actually it's a 49-page document for my first master's.
I'm very interested in sitting down and reading this, and I know I'm a nerd. That's why I'm on your show, but I'm very interested in reading how it is that you sat down and created the study, went about doing the study. I'm very interested in this, and I know sitting down and picking your brains in the hangout it's not going to do what it is that I'm looking for. I want to read your paper.
Okay. Well, it wasn't my first master's. It wasn't technically published, but I can, I suppose it could be. Yeah.
Technically published, and you got your master's, and it was published. Whether it was technical, no. You did something awesome. You got your master's degree, and you just brought up this situational experiment that you created, and it sounds absolutely enthralling to read about and to look into. I'm not joking. I'm not.
Okay. Well, I'll be happy to send it to you.
It sounds like a lot of fun. So I know I'm personally interested. Yeah.
We have strayed so far from Tesla, but I think he wouldn't mind so much. I don't think.
I'm interested too, but I'm afraid you're going to have to redo it in video format. That's the way I roll. Anyway, that's not true. That is me being a wise ass. What that is.
That's
anyway,
okay.
All I really wanted to add to that discussion is Nikola Tesla died in his room on January 7th, 1943. That's it.
That's it. And speaking, when we're talking about Tesla, we've strayed a bit, but I think I think he wouldn't have minded so much. He seemed like an individual who was willing to share his knowledge and share his experiences and try to better society as a whole. I don't know if he was on the spectrum in regards to autism or Asperger's or anything like that, but I do find that individuals that have inherent really high levels of creativity and intelligence tend to suffer other types of social issues. I mean, so when I look at that, I think, okay, having been a teacher, I've known people that are on the spectrum who are very intelligent and have really good talents of particular things. So the way I see it is like a person who is blind, they're really good at hearing and touch, or a person who is deaf has phenomenal sight. So it's almost like, with your brain, it kind of picks up other talents or just the good things about you are just enhanced, while there are sacrifices in other respects. So he had social issues. He was a very lonely person. And that, to me, I feel, is a bit of a price for his incredible creativity and intelligence, that energy. And I hate to sound all woo-like, but, when you think that energy comes from somewhere, that has to be fed into that. And so there are sacrifices made where he's not so adept for social cues and social nuances, but he knows all about alternating current. So it's just,
Mel, I think that you are absolutely on point with that, and I don't think that there's anybody on this planet that would disagree with being on point with that. One of the ways that I've always really liked looking at it, obviously Tesla had eyes. He was able to see the world. He had a brain. He was able to interpret the world. He had hands. He was able to touch and feel the world. He had a nose. He was able to smell it, so on and so forth. He had all senses available. Imagine for just 5 seconds if you had to sit down and take an individual such as Nikola Tesla, have them born in complete and utter solitary confinement, in a sphere, in a padded sphere, no senses. Something in my brain tells me if you did that to Nikola Tesla, he still would have been a genius.
Well, actually, there are indicators that might
do that to me. I would be an absolute effing retard.
I don't recommend you do that experiment, but there are indicators that might be the case. The abject fear of being touched is, I think, a pretty good indicator.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we gotta Snopes up is I had read that one of his female associates leaned over and kissed him at one point, and he fled in terror. I read that, but that sounds a little over the top. We might have to Snope that up and see if it's true.
If she had something sticky on her lips and she kissed him, if she had been kissing me, I would run in terror.
All right.
And I was going to say to Mel's thing, I don't he wasn't diagnosed, of course, but it is suspected that Tesla might have had Asperger's.
Yes.
From what I was reading earlier, but just the fact that he didn't like being touched, he was super focused on his work, and basically nothing else could get in the way when he was doing something. Pretty good aspects.
Yeah, but the only thing that leans in the other direction was he was a good showman, and that shouldn't be if if that was the case. I mean, look at the demonstrations with the great arcs from his large Tesla coils. That was all for show. That was basically loss for the transmission of power. You do not want that. When I was creating an experiment on the front porch, you lose power doing that. That was purely to look at how cool this thing is, and I'm sure it has the desired effect.
Yeah, just for anyone that joined in late, SciStrike does build Tesla coils and run these experiments actively. So,
and no longer wears the wire-rimmed glasses when adjusting the coil. See, I think we learned something today. Anyway, but yeah, that the ability to do the showman thing. Not to the extent of Edison, where he was willing to use the death of a human as part of the show, but
right?
or an elephant. But yeah, but I mean, he did the showman thing pretty well. He had a lot of good quotes that he knew would affect people. And a lot of them are either misquoted, taken out of context, or misused by the very groups we were referring to earlier, who deserve no mention here. So I will not mention the flat earthers. Damn it, I did it. But see, that would not be the case. That would not be the case. That doesn't seem to fit in with his avoiding being touched by anybody and all that sort of thing.
Well, and some people with high functioning autism and Asperger's can be pretty good showmen. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, and most people would say I'm decent. I don't know about good, but the ability to be a showman when it's something you're super interested in could work for someone with Asperger's and on the higher end of the spectrum.
Okay, so it's not a subject I know a great deal about. So I mean that's it. Just seemed like it was just an observation that.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, but yeah, if he's super focused and interested in that topic, he could probably talk about it and do a show for hours.
Yeah, and the thing that I was mentioning, like with the demonstrations, with the where he's sitting in the chair in front of the thing, and there's all the arcing about behind him. That's not the thing that he was trying to produce. That was, how can I make this thing that I produced be very, very impressive looking to the most people? Do you know what I'm saying there? It's like,
right.
He was going a perfectly resonant device that he built would not be blowing off a lot of sparks. Everything would be transmitted as RF in a field around the thing.
That's why you wind up having businessmen such as Westinghouse and Edison battling for what my guys can do, as opposed to the guys battling down, going, this is what I can do.
Right.
That still exists today. It's not a thing of the early 1900s. It's not a thing of any decade. It has nothing to do with when time happens. If you want to show off something that has potential to do something amazing, you need financial backing, and that sucks. It does. I've been in that situation when it comes to businesses. I've owned my own businesses where it comes to, crap, now I got to go and find a job because I didn't have the showmanship. I had the tech.
Got to put on the
showmanship.
Just an aside.
Showmanship is a completely different thing from, hey, look at what I can do with the circus. They're two totally different things, and it kind of stinks that a lot of times they're treated as the same. Because they're not.
I'm trying to think of okay, so I'm reminded of the film that David Bowie was in, probably one of his last films, where he actually played Tesla. Have you guys seen that film?
I have not. I thought you were going with Labyrinth. All right,
I was going to say, ever since Bowie passed away, that's Labyrinth is pretty much the only movie with Bowie in it that I've watched, because I'm going to see Wolf Labyrinth.
It's called The Prestige.
Yes.
Seriously? That was David Bowie in The Prestige? I thought
He
that was...
played Nikolai Tesla.
Dude.
So
He was Tesla.
he was
How could I not know
Tesla.
that?
It's
What?
It's phenomenal. Yeah, in The Prestige, the Hugh Jackman
I
and
thought that was the British dude whose name sounds like his sister's name.
yes. It's a Christopher Nolan film, but yeah, the dude who played Batman for a little bit and was also in American Psycho. I can't remember his name right off.
I am not good with movies.
I'm going to watch that.
Yes, go watch The Prestige and appreciate the
Prestige
Tesla
is
moments
an amazing film.
with
but
David Bowie.
what about the other aspect of it, which it popularizes something that never happened, that was not the kind of work Tesla was doing. He was not doing magic.
He wasn't doing woo transportation. But to be fair, one of the reasons why I like that film, there's still an argument that I have about how it ended. It's like, was it this or was it that? So I still get into acting.
There's like a million dudes in tanks in a basement.
Yes.
That's terrible.
It is terrible.
It's an awesome scene. Don't get me wrong.
Just don't
now
tell
that I know the movie you're talking about, I do love that movie, Mel. That's a great one to bring up. It's an awesome
great.
movie. But,
and don't give it away. Do not give it away that Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
No spoilers here. I guess we're gonna wrap it up soon because we've been on for almost an hour and a half.
Oh.
Oh dang!
Yeah,
Wow.
It's
just flew by.
We started. It's actually we started a little after 8, so it's been almost 2 hours.
I think I'm to blame for that.
And
Jim, yes, microwave ovens are using RF, and if I may interject, Jim also says the kids are too active. It must be ADD, ADHD. It's never the sugar.
It's love for Tesla.
Don't blame
and
drinking Mountain Dew.
It's currents. It's that current technology, AC and DC.
Oh, and thanks to SciStrike bringing up all this, that, and the other thing, let's not even go ahead and talk about all of the other works that Tesla was a part of, including X-rays, that might give you a little jolt of energy here and there.
And Niagara Falls.
There was.
This is.
Yeah, I don't think any of us covered a tenth of what we wanted to. I think we were sidebarred by everything that we said.
Well, I think that just shows a
I'm
love
going
for
to admit
Tesla.
guilt for that immediately.
Okay. And
But the thing is we can have a part 2 later on, and we can have different assignments with Tesla.
all right, we'll need more drinks.
We'll need more drinks. That's okay. So it'll be all right. So if you enjoyed this, we will have another episode of Spirited Science. I'm shooting for a couple of times a month. I've secured a local venue for live streaming locally at a pub, restaurant, or bar. And so I've worked out a deal with the Cove, which is a pirate-themed bar. How awesome is that? So I'm gonna coordinate. I've got information for the Coast Guard, the local zoo, and I'm going to check in with one of the local universities to see if maybe we can raise some money for conservation efforts for the Gulf, because I'm not too far for the Gulf. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. I'm shooting for July for the live stream in that regard with a local venue, so it'll give me time to promote it. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to try really hard for the next Spirited Science episode to be about Katherine Johnson, the phenomenal mathematician physicist that helped with the first moon landing. And she has a building named after her in NASA. And given that that's where I was just a few weekends ago,
Woo! Science is now going to NASA.
See, now there's going to be two of us saying, go apply right now, right?
Go. If you have a social media presence, you don't even have to be involved in science. If you have a social media presence, go and experience the NASA Social. Learn a little bit about what they do. The next one is the SpaceX launch, to where they have a supply mission, I believe, going to the ISS. So, and that's at the Kennedy Space Center. Enjoy the science. Get involved. Now, if you're a science communicator, guess what? I have been running an experiment for the past few days called Scientist Mail TV 24/7. I want your content and I want to put it on my channel. So what I want to do is have a consistent live streaming thing going on where it's science 24/7 in your face. Like, except
Nice.
maybe not really harsh, because that's not my jam. But I'm working with others, and I tried it out for about 3 days, and I had a pretty good response, where I have over 100 videos just on YouTube, whether it's shorts, with full-length live streams. If you're a science communicator, I want your work, and I want to put it on my 24/7 TV channel that I'm going to do. Eventually I'll branch it off to its own YouTube channel. But that's, I want to just boost scientific literacy. So let's work together. I want to put that on there to where teachers can use it anywhere in the country or the world. Pop it up on there, 24/7 live stream. I've got a dedicated computer that just came in today that'll be just for that. So if you're a science communicator, you have content that you want me to put on my channel for that, there will be a live stream just for that. And the only time it'll pause is when we're doing this right now. So
Very awesome, Mel.
I think it'll be great.
That's super cool.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. So help me educate the world. I think that'll be great. And so thank you, Sci. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Godless Iowan. And thank you, Steve, for hopping on here and talking about Tesla. This has been absolutely wonderful. Enjoy an AC/DC drink this weekend. I've posted the recipe for that on Twitter as well as Google+. I'll pop it over on Facebook, and then I'll upload this video to Facebook as well. And those of you in the chat, if you're on Discord, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, ask your questions and we will answer them to the best of our ability. Thank you so much for being part of this project that I have. It means a lot to me, and I'm so glad you're here. Any last thoughts on Tesla before we go?
I don't have one on Tesla, but you know how a great way to enjoy an AC/DC drink?
How's that?
When you're watching Rocky IV.
Ah. I got nothing.
Yeah, that's me too.
Thanks so much for having us, Mel. This is an awesome, an absolutely awesome show, and I hope that everybody else that joins you in the future has as much fun as we did, or at least as I did. I can't speak for anyone else, but this was a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
And hopefully they'll stay on topic better than all of us did.
That's okay. And if you want to be on one of my shows, you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be an educator. You just have to want to learn. And I'll give you a topic to cover. You'll pop on and talk about it. That's all you got to do. And that's kind of what this is about. Us all sharing a beverage together and talking about something that we love. That's all that is.
I would
love
agree.
it.
Alrighty then.
Well, I guess I will sign off with the awesome intro that Peter and Tony made for me. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you next time.
Woo, Peter and Tony, you should have known someone was going to be buzzed by the end of this thing.
Yay, bye.
You guys are awesome. I hope you're awesome.